00111000001, but they are changing too quickly, then you will see that the interpixel redundancy is not a good technique. But here in this example, for instance, it says that consider the line 100. Line 100 is this line. Okay? And in this line, you can see that there are very big regions of zeros and ones, or let's say we have another line here. You see there are lots of big regions of 1, which I can tell you that, after this 0, which happens in this specific location, you will have 500 ones. So you say 500 and 1. Instead of writing 500 bits, you give for 500 9 bits, for 1 bit with 10 bits. So instead of 500 with 10 bits, you can finish the whole word, right? So here there is a small issue, is that you have to go line by line, look at it, and code it. So for instance, in the line 100, it says that we have for 63 we have 1. Then for 87 location we have 0. Then for 37 location I have 1. Then for 5 location I have 0. So you can continue and do it for all, for this line. But then you have to do for the next line. Then you have to do for the next line. So you have to do it for all lines. And in this specific example, if you do it for all lines, you see that we will need in total 12,166. How we calculate it? Here, if you say that, okay, I have the number 64. For number 64, I need how many bits? 6 bits? 6 bits I need here, plus 1 bit, so it's 7 bit, plus 8 bits, plus here I need 8 bits, like 16 bits. So if you add all this number of bits, and you have to do it for every single rows that we have, then we will get the total of 12,166. Okay? Now, this was the original number. This was the original numbers that we were getting it. And if you multiply, you will see that we can get the compression of 2.6 and the redundancy of 62. Again, one issue with this method is, first it has to be black and white. It has to be able, like visually when you see, you have to be able to see that there are lots of zeros and ones comes, otherwise it's not a very good method. In other words, if I give you a Lena, definitely it's not a method that you want to try. Because the amount of time that you are putting into it, to get it, maybe for the Lena it will work with a compression of 1.001, with a redundancy of, I don't know, very small, like 1% redundancy. So you really don't want to do it, okay? So what is important here is we deal with images like this, which is black and white, and we can visually see that there are lots of repetitive things. Now, and another thing that we do is psychovisual redundancy. The previous one, interpixel redundancy, is it lossy or lossless? Lossless. Because like here, you can reconstruct it completely back. If I tell you that go to the line 100, first put 10 ones, and then put 20 zeros. So if you put the ones and zeros, you can get the image completely back. Now, we are talking about the psychovisual redundancy, and if you remember from the beginning of the course or from the previous course, in my lectures I usually use this term quite a lot, psychovisual. And by psychovisual I mean that, look, we have eye, we are very blessed by having eye, but our eye is not very sensitive. In other words, if you have 30 frames per second, or if you have 100 frames per second, we do not understand it because we cannot find the differences. Or from here, when I look at, let's say, Ozan, I do not see the details of the hair. So if the details of hair is there, or if they are not there, I don't understand it. You understand? I do not see it. I don't find that you have removed some of those details. However, every single details means that you are allocating some bits. It means that you are allocating something for that in the memory. Where if I cannot see it, why do you want to put it? Right? Why do you want to put it? When you want to do the recording of a music, we can listen, we can hear some specific band of wavelengths, right? And or frequency, and below or above that one we cannot hear it. So why do you want to record it? If you cannot hear, if your aim is that put it into your car to listen to it, if you cannot hear it, why do you want to play it? So this is the whole thing. In the psychovisual, it says that sometimes I can get rid of some of the information where when I'm looking at it, I cannot distinguish it. So I can delete them. It gets back to the other example that I had. You can get very good compression ratio if you delete one, and no one will realize that you have deleted. No one will realize that you have deleted. So the idea is that we are talking with psychologists, and we find out what are important when we are looking at an image. What are the things which are not important? Or you are talking with doctors and find out that what are the things that we cannot really see and distinguish by very good eyes even. And by using that, people come up with a technique which they can use in order to compress. And in signal processing, we say that we can play with the quantization, let's say, of the images, so we do not need to see so many of the details, right? So, tell me, is this method a lossy or lossless technique? It's a lossy technique. Why? Because we start to lose some of the information. However, this is not lossy in the sense that you remove the eye of Lena, so you cannot see the eye of the Lena. You are removing those data, you are removing those information, that when you are looking at that one, still, you get very cool image, and you do not realize that, oh, there are lots of losses. We will talk about a quantitative method. We are talking about a metric which you can use it in order to see how much loss you have. So you can understand that, okay, although method A and method B are lossy, but method A is better because if they have the same compression ratio, one of them has less loss, so we can measure the amount of loss. But basically, when you look at it, you cannot understand that there is some losses inside the image. Even sometimes we agree to have some loss, visual loss, which you can see, but for you, it's the other things are much important. In other words, I want to compress an image because I have very limited memory space inside my robot. It's a rescue robot. For the robot, it's important to see that there are humans in here. I don't care if the robot understands that this is Egis, or this is Fatima, or this is Ozan. It's important to see that there are humans. So, I can compress it much by getting rid of lots of details on the, let's say, face, hair, and so many parts. In other words, I can compress it that much that even I get rid of the eyes. Because, let's say, my algorithm works with the solid and the gesture, and I understand that, okay, this is a human because this has the gesture of a human. Okay? So, I can compress it very much. I can have lots of loss because I don't care to recognize a person. What I care is that I still be able to see a human. So you see it's a lossy, we are losing a lot. Maybe this algorithm will be miserably fail if you want to sell it to Photoshop because you are losing too much. But it will be very okay for this specific application of rescue robot. And this is a real life example that I gave you. Now, so in general what we do, we are dealing with something which is called quantization. Keep this one in your mind. If a compression technique has quantization inside it, it means definitely it is lossy. So quantization is the loss aspects. Do you remember in the first week or second week of this course when we had the first slides, we were talking about sampling and quantization? Do you remember? We said that we are talking about digital image and how we are getting the digital image. We are sampled the analog image and we are quantized. That's why we have 8-bit representation. We have 8-bit representation. In other words, your bit is your intensity value is either 0 or 1 or 2. It cannot be 1.5, right? It cannot be 0.25. We are giving it some specific values. So this means that if we have 0.5, we are losing it because either it goes to 1 or it goes to 0. You cannot get back. So quantization means that we are trimming. We are killing so many of the values. quantization is always a one-way road. If you quantize, you cannot get back. If you quantize, you cannot get back. Imagine that number 1 goes to 1, number 0.5 goes to 1. And I give you that, look, the result of the quantization is 1. What was the original one? You don't know if it comes from 1 or if it comes from 0.5. So quantization is the reason that we start to have some losses. So you will see that later. I will show you a block diagram. The main difference between the lossy and lossless compression technique is that in the lossy technique we have this quantization. Quantization mainly works based on this psychovisual effect. You can quantize because you cannot see it. Not that you cannot see it, you cannot detect it, you cannot understand that that has happened. Or you are quantizing it maybe because of the application, like the application of the rescue robot that I gave you. It's not important to see that there are eyes and nose and mustache. It's important to see that that's a human, however you want to detect a human, okay? So we want to do the quantization. One easy way of doing the quantization is this. We said we have 8 bits, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is for 1 pixel. So I need to have 8-bit representation. Okay? Can you tell me what is the name of this? Least significant bit, LSB. And this is MSB, most significant bit. Right? If Abdulaziz, only Abdulaziz will answer. If I have a pixel which has value something, 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 0, okay? And before I give it to you, I change this one to 1. And you look at the pixel value. Can your eye detect it? No. In other words, our eye cannot detect 0 and 1, 240, 241. You cannot detect it. I mean, they are absolutely of the same form. So this means that what will happen, Abdulaziz, what will happen if I completely kill this one? And I look at, instead of 8 bits, I kill the least significant and I have 7 bits, I create the image, I give it to you. Can you understand that there are some changes?
Yes.
No. Because what happens is you do not see the difference between 240 and 241. Because if you delete it, if you ignore it, it's like that we have only this, only even values are there. In other words, you have maybe 0, 1, 2, 3, but you change it to 0, 0, 2, 2. So you cannot understand that a change like this has happened. So killing the least significant bit, you should not be able to understand it. Okay? What will happen if I start to kill 2 of them?
You will start blocking the effect.
We start maybe, I mean I have weak eyes, maybe with hyperopia I cannot understand it, but maybe we will start to understand that, okay, there are some changes. This was not what I gave you. And if you start to increase this number of bits, by killing means that you put 0, so you need only 1 bit to represent the whole thing at the end. And if I start to delete more and more and more, then you will see that we start to have some significant changes. If we have an 8-bit representation, I can kill the least significant. What is the name of these first four? Least significant? Nibble. You know that a byte has 2 nibbles, right? The first 4 is the least significant nibble. The second 4 is the most significant nibbles. I can kill the least significant nibbles because the one which is high is very important. This is actually how you can understand whether something is dark or something is bright. So that is very important. So what I can do is, I can say that I kill all the least significant nibbles, and I keep only the first 4, and I am making my image, and I'm reconstructing my image. And what happens is, I don't know, let me switch off the light and be hopeful that you will be able to see. And so this is the 8-bit, I am killing the least significant nibbles, and I am getting this image. As Ulari mentioned, what happens is I start to have this contour effect. It's called contour effect, because now that there is no light, Egil is sleeping now, but now what happens is we can see these lines. We introduce this line, and this is not good. This is not good in a sense that I can be disturbed when I'm looking at this one. I will be disturbed when I'm looking at this one. But it was also good because I had like compressed by half of the number of bits. So it's in a moment that it's not very cool feeling. Okay. So it's a moment that with this I can really compress, but also it caused some bad effect. That's why that the scientists came with an idea of IGS, improved grayscale quantization. So as you can see here again, I have 4-bit, and I'm using the 4 most significant ones. In other words, I use the most significant nibble, and I don't have the counter effect. So let's see how this IGS works. How this IGS works. The IGS works like this. For the first one, I am killing the first 4. In other words, I'm using only the least significant nibbles that I had before, right? But for the next one, for the I, what I do, although I am picking up the first 4 bits, but I am adding the previous last 4 bit into it. In other words, I do not let, Fatima, if you want to sleep, you go and wash your face. What happens here is, when we are killing the least significant nibbles, we start to make some jumps. And because of these sudden jumps, we have this counter effect. If I make these jumps smaller, then I can have a smoother transition. This is the whole thing that the IGS tried to say. So, IGS said that when you are killing the least significant nibble and you have this big jump, use the least significant nibble of here and add it to this one. In other words, we try to make them closer to each other. So we are trying to reduce this number of jumps, and we try to get rid of the contouring effect that we had. So what happens, I am adding this number to that, and I am proceeding like this in order to make them 4-bit representation. So this is one way of handling the quantization. Of course, we want to have much more advanced way of compressing the image, like JPEG and so many other techniques that compress maybe 50 times, 60 times more. So, psychovisual redundancy. It's lossy technique, and we lose information by the end of the day when we want to do the compression. But I told you that we have to see how much we are losing, and in order to find out how much we are losing, we have to come up with a metric and say that, you know, although you are compressing it 50 times, although you cannot see it, but you are losing that much information. Now, question is, if I give you this image without compression, and then I give you another image and I say, look, this is a lossy compression, how can you find out what are the differences? Yeah, I mean, subtraction is the easiest form, right? You can subtract and see that, okay, there are some changes happening. But more advanced form, we are calculating something which is called mean square error. In other words, you subtract, you S square it, and then you add all these subtract S squared values, and you divide it by the total number of values that you have, and we call it mean S square error, MSE. So MSE is one way of seeing how much difference we have. So if MSE is high, we are
Losing so many.
yes, we are losing more because it means that MSE is mean square error, so its error is high. So we have lots of changes. So we want to have a technique which has very low MSE, high compression ratio. In image, and this MSE is valid for images, for audio signals, for any type of signal. So it's a term which is used in signal processing quite a lot. In case of image processing, we have something which is much cooler. And I can tell you that how it came out. In signal processing, the signal, not only being because of the quantization, because there exists lots of noise, might be deformed. And what we are calculating a ratio which is called signal to noise ratio. Right? Signal to noise ratio. So do we want to have this ratio high or low? High, because we want to have the ratio, the amount of signal, to be much higher than the amount of the noise. So the idea is that to make it very high. Now, if the amount of signal is much higher than the amount of the noise, remember, they are actually mixed together. What you have in your hand is signal and noise together. But you want to have what you have, although there are some noise, but you want to have highest portion to be signal, lower portion to be noise, right? So, if signal to noise ratio is very high, it means that we have lots of signals, less noise. Can you tell me what happens to MSE? SNR, signal to noise ratio, is very high. What can we say about a mean square error? It will be low because the amount of noise is much smaller, so it means the amount of the error will be smaller. So signal to noise ratio high means that MSE is low. So you understand that they have this reciprocal relationship. Increasing one will decrease the other one. This signal to noise ratio, which is known as SNR, in image processing has different form, which we call it peak signal to noise ratio, and it is PSNR. Okay, so PSNR, if you are talking with people who knows computer vision image processing, you can use the term PSNR. But if you talk with someone who works on communication and signal processing, when you say PSNR, they may not understand you. So you have to say it's SNR, because it's SNR. The formula is the same, everything is the same, but with slight changes. PSNR, peak signal to noise ratio, and SNR, signal to noise ratio, has a unit. Compression ratio, does it have a unit? No, compression ratio has no unit. Redundancy, it doesn't have any unit. Mean square error, it doesn't have any unit, right? So, well, I mean, it has the unit of whatever it was before. Like if you want to measure error in distance, it will be error in distances, right? I mean, we have physicists, they can correct me. But PSNR has its own unit. Do you know what is the unit of signal to noise ratio? Decibel. We call it dB. Okay? And the best value is 0. 1. I say infinity. How many agrees with me? Yeah, infinity is the value. So if you have the PSNR value, infinity means it's the best. So in other words, PSNR gives you the quality of your work. So if we have higher PSNR, it means you are better. Now, we will get to the formula in a few seconds, but I have to tell you something about this PSNR value. Usually, on an average, for human being, if your PSNR value is like 35 and above, Like we said that one image is 40 dB, the other image is 42 dB, and you put it in front of a very, very good eagle-eyed person, they cannot find a difference. If the PSNR is more than 35, human eyes cannot detect it. If the PSNR is not infinity but a number, let's say 1 million, it means there exists still some errors, some changes. But keep this on your mind, visually, if you are above, let's say 35, you cannot distinguish it. So you cannot say that, look, there is a method A which commercially is available. It compresses 50 times and its PSNR is 40. And it's available in the market. I am proposing another method which I am compressing 50 times again, and my PSNR is 42. No one will buy your method. Why? Because I don't see any difference. Why do I need to go to another method? Now, you can knock the door of, let's say, people who are working on remote sensing and they are dealing with the images which for them 45 dB, although they cannot see 45 dB and 46 dB are different, then you can discuss it. But you cannot go to Photoshop and say that, you know that you are working with JPEG, you have this compression ratio for like 50 and PSNR 40, I give you a better PSNR 42, no, they will laugh at you, they don't buy it because, you know, you cannot see it. And for them, the end users are human. If they cannot see it, it means that there is no need to put any effort onto it. Okay? Now, again, before I go to the next slide and show you the formula, one other question. You have been employed by a hospital and they want to compress the whole images that they have of, let's say, the radiologs gave the images, you have images of mammography, or all those things, MRI. And they tell you that, hey guy, you know, we give you good money and we want you to compress it. Okay? And there exists a method one which use quantization technique A, and it gives you 50 compression ratio. And there exists a method 2 which is using, let's say, interpixel or some kind of other technique, let's say some coding redundancy, and it has a compression ratio of 3. And there is a method, let's say 0, which use the coding plus the quantization method A. In other words, it uses both of them, and it gives you the compression ratio of 90%. Now, which method will you use in order to do this compression for this hospital? Suman?
I'll go method 2.
You go for method 2, why?
It's lossless.
Yes, for medical imaging, it's very crucial. You cannot be lossy. You cannot have an image of a person who has cancer and due to the loss of compression, you say that you know that you are alive, you don't have a cancer, you don't need any treatment. Or you cannot tell a healthy person, you know that I was using the method 1 or method 0 and it was lossy, and when I decompress it I can see something. It means that you have a tumor in your brain where the person is very healthy. So in other words, for medical images, for these type of things, you don't want to do the lossy compression. Or imagine that the Hubble telescope has taken an image from this dark space, which a galaxy is just 1 pixel. You really don't want to use the lossy compression, because if you lose 1 pixel, it means you have lost one of the galaxies, right? So you have to be careful about the scenarios that you have in your hand. Sometimes, of course, 90% is great, 50% is great, but it's lossy. I mean, you will start to create something which doesn't exist, or kill something which was existing there and it was very crucial and very important. So for this type of application, we don't care. We will be very lossless. We don't want to be lossy by any means. Psychovisual doesn't have any meaning. We want to have PSNR when we are calculating to be infinity. The MSE to be 0. Now, how we are calculating this MSE is this. We, as I said, the image after compression minus the image before compression, we square it and we add all the values, we divide it by total number of pixels and we get the mean square error. Some people, they said that, oh, this is a very big value, they put an square root for that, and they calculate root mean square error for that one. Okay? And we are using this formula in order to calculate something which we call it PSNR. And PSNR is calculated by this formula. We will use it a lot. People of signal processing, communication, as well as the communication, they care about SNR, signal to noise ratio. This is for your information, and this is how we do it. How we calculate the PSNR is in this. By default, all the images that you have in your hand is an 8-bit image, right? Unless that I tell you. In other words, if you have an 8-bit image, the PSNR is 10 log 10 of 255 squared divided by mean square error. Or you can have the square root, so you have 255 divided by RMC, and this is 20 log 10, right? But if you don't have an 8-bit image, if you have a 14-bit image, or if you have an 8-bit, a 3-bit image, the formula will be changed. It's actually 2 to power of number of bits minus 1 square divided by MSE, the mean square error, and then you calculate the 10 log 10 of that one. So this is the formula that we will use from now on. So if MSE is equal to 0, means lossless method, perfect match, we understand that we have an infinity and log of infinity is infinity, so PSNR will be infinity. So if you are writing a code and you are doing something and then you are calculating the PSNR and you see an infinity at some point, it means that you are not losing anything. Maybe losing anything, if you don't lose anything, maybe there is some problem in your code because maybe you want to change something, it means that you didn't manage to change that thing, okay? So what we do, we are using this formula quite a lot. And basically, in many of our talk, we will use the PSNR, and I'll tell you that, look, the PSNR is 35 dB, and 35 dB and above we cannot understand. I mean, for the 8-bit image. For 12-bit image, you have to calculate and see that what can be the value, which after that, with high probability, we cannot distinguish. Okay, so I think this is the slide that I can stop before I talk about how we want to do this task. So next talk that we want to do tomorrow is this. How can I assign these numbers? Okay? And tomorrow I start by an example and I will solve the example on the board. Within the example we will see how we are allocating these bits. After that, we go back to our slides and we follow and see how the slides are going on. Okay? Do you have any question regarding to image compression up to this point? If not, have a nice time. See you tomorrow.